I think that they get to Lawrence. I just think that I don't think he's as mobile of a quarterback as Jalen Hurts. I think he can move a little bit, but I think if he gets caught and if there's any open hole and if that offensive line makes any little bit of mistake, the Eagles are going to come rushing. Now, do we see the blitz a lot more?
Dougie P week, breaking it down all week long. We had Austin Lane yesterday, Ashlyn Sullivan today. We're going to have Tony Baselli on Friday, maybe Jimmy Smith as well, as we rotate some Jaguars in here. But we are Eagles Talk, and here to do it each and every Wednesday is Kayla Santiago of Delmarva Sports joining us here on the Football Playbook. Good morning, Kayla. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Well, we're soaring and we're riding high. One of two teams left in the NFL that are undefeated. Who would have thunk it? And shout out to Joe Eagle in the chat room saying a lot of comparisons between the Dolphins and the Eagles, the two undefeated teams. Oh, by the way, Tua listed as limited, a big time Thursday night football matchup. We'll talk more about tomorrow with the Dolphins and the Bengals. But Jalen Hurts is that guy again, and a lot of naysayers still don't want to believe it, but he's just distributing the ball. We talked about getting Devonta Smith involved. Well, it was his turn to feast this week, career high, 169 receiving yards. I heard Ric Serritella yesterday on a one-on-one show with Dave Spadaro, and they were talking about because Coach Sirianni used to be a wide receiver back in the day. They were talking about Devonta Smith, his natural, just the way he can torque his body and adapt to bad balls thrown in the air. It's not something that you can just teach. It's more of an athletic trait. Like either you have it or you don't. And we've seen it from these Alabama wide receivers. They're just rare breeds. But we saw firsthand why there are no Robins on this team. They are all Batmans, and every week it could be a different cast of characters.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that a season ago, right? You saw glimpses of Jalen Hurts and that Devonta Smith connection. And year two going into that, now having A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith being able to play that number two guy role and stepping up when he needs to, it's exciting. I mean, it was only week 3 to be able to see him finally get involved in the offense and really have some good yardage. Helped my fantasy team out a lot as well. Give me 30 points in fantasy, so I was all for it. But really, I mean, I love seeing him get involved. He is such a fun player to watch. He can create so much in space. He's so speedy and so quick, especially over the top. And once again, I mean, I think you have these threats of wide receivers. You have to utilize them each and every week. And I think they're starting to do that better and better as every single day goes on.
Yeah, and Coach, offensive coordinator Shane Steichen said it's the camaraderie, it's the experience, it's the work they're putting in the film room, staying after on the field, building that chemistry. And something else that Coach Sirianni said is they're having fun while they're doing it. And I thought it was interesting because Sirianni was so locked into the game. I think when it got to like 17-0, we saw the Batman cape come out on the sidelines. And Coach Sirianni said he had no idea. He didn't even know that was happening. But he said he got wind of it post-game. And on the bus ride home, they had a lot of fun. All the different receivers were taking turns wearing the Batman cape. So it's just great to see, when you're winning, it obviously helps, but the chemistry, the camaraderie, it all starts with Hurts though, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I think that's what it's all about. And, any team can have a lot of talent, but when you're able to utilize that talent and also have a really good chemistry and have fun out there and just completely ball out, that is really going to help this team make that extra point. And I think Jalen Hurts makes it a point to go make relationships with every single player, whether it's the defensive back rooms, whether it's the secondary, whether it's the offense, the defensive line. You can see him trying to make those relationships. It's not just about, oh, well, he's going to make that relationship with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. It's about everybody. And I think you can see that at least for the first 3 weeks on the field.
No, Jalen just gets it, right? He just gets it. Like, what they say, what is it? The it factor. It's Jalen Hurts. It's understanding that, like, hey, I'm not just going to come in, punch my time card, go home, punch it out. Like, no, I'm going to spend time with you. I want to learn about your family. I want to know about, what you're doing off the field. Hey, come on over. Like, whether it's a player or a coach, we heard Sirianni say like Steichen and Hurts are boys off the field, like they hang out and they can't get rid of this guy. Like he's in the facility at 4 a.m. He's there at 8 p.m. All he talks about and wants is football, football, football. I just find it hard to believe. Glenn Irby was on before you. He said, in terms of locally, the whole Jalen Hurts contract situation, the debate whether he is or isn't a franchise quarterback, he said, is never going to go away. Even when he signs the contract, people are going to be debating if it was a good deal, a bad deal. And I tend to agree at this point, based on what Jalen Hurts has done and still based on the non-believers out there, this is just a topic that you're always going to have people on either side of the fence. Is that what you're sensing as well?
Yeah, and I think it has a lot to do with also him playing in Philadelphia, just because the expectations of playing for a city like the city of brotherly love. But listen, I think Jalen Hurts, I said this the other day, he has so much pressure on him for really only being in his second full year as a quarterback. I mean, the expectations that he has to be able to be one of the top quarterbacks in the league, it seems like at this point, is absolutely crazy to me. But once again, he's not letting that dwell on him at all. He's going to try to live up to that expectation. And he just gets Philadelphia. And that's what's so exciting to watch, because you see a lot of players come into this town and sometimes they just don't get it. It's a blue collar mentality. You have to work for every little thing you have. Jalen Hurts wasn't projected to be the Eagles franchise quarterback. If everybody remembers, people weren't happy when he was drafted because Carson Wentz was that franchise guy at the time. But he has completely lived up to everything that he's needed to. He's going to have bad games. They're going to lose a game this year. That's going to happen. I'm sure people are going to be like, we don't want Jalen Hurts anymore. He's not the franchise guy. They're going to go back to that. But I think that conversation never leaves just because of the city that he plays in and the expectations that he has this year for sure.
I remember they booed Donovan McNabb too. And, at a certain point, it stopped. I think Hurts needs to perform well in the playoffs, as somebody in the chat room suggested. Hey, Rick, come see me come playoff time. And you're right. If they go one and done again, this season is going to be viewed as a huge disappointment. It doesn't matter how many regular season wins they have. It's going to matter how many postseason W's they can put on the board. We're talking to Kayla Santiago, Delmarva Sports. Steichen also said it was a huge step for the offense to be able to lean on the passing game. And he was asked, is that predetermined going into the week? How do you kind of game plan for each opponent? And he said it's a little bit of preparation, but it's also predicated on the flow of the game. He said this game, it just happened that Hurts was in his zone. He was feeling it. He was making audibles at the line of scrimmage that was like Hurts would audible, and he'd said, I was fired up because he's making the absolute right call. Now, they only averaged, I think, like 2.8, 2.6 yards per carry. You can't lead the league in rushing every week, but it was somewhat of a step back for the run game. I think they only picked up 3 first downs on the ground, 16 through the air. Is that something that you're concerned about? You reassess, or just kind of happened to be the way that game flowed?
Not at all, and I say that because Washington coming in, their rush defense didn't look great in the first 2 weeks, and I think that was their game plan to stop the run. I think knowing that the Eagles have a very mobile quarterback, knowing the rotation of the 3 running back that the Birds have, I think that was their game plan to stop the run game. But I don't think they thought for a second that the Eagles be able to get so many points and so much success throughout the air. And I think that's where you look at Jalen Hurts and you say, he's smart, and that's football IQ right there, because he realized something's not working. He realized the defense of the Commanders and their game plan is to come in and stop the run. So he's going to utilize his targets. He's going to get even more accurate and better in the passing game, and that was something good to see. Now, if the running game gets stopped this week again, then I think you worry about it a little bit. But honestly, I just think that was the Commanders' game plan coming in. I think that was their top priority, and I think the Eagles just surprised them in the passing game.
Yeah, they had a stellar run defense, and Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, the Alabama boys up front. I mean, they are top of the line, I think, in terms of players at their position. Now, Limits COD in the chat room makes a good point, something we've talked about on this show. I think something crazy, like 64 of the Eagles' 85 points this season have all occurred in the second quarter. All 24 points in week 3, ironically, came in the second quarter. I think in the first 3 games, they've only scored like 14 points in the second half. And I think we can say we've seen it now in all 3 games where the second half, we call it taking the foot off the gas. I don't know. You can call it playing a complete game, playing all 4 quarters. When they get to teams like the Jaguars, I'd put even the Cardinals coming up, Green Bay, Thanksgiving week, they're going to have to play a complete game. What is it, do you think, that the second half, they get up by all these points and, I think they closed out the Commanders pretty early. The other games, not so much. What's your take?
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest worry right now when you look at the schedule coming up, as you mentioned, the Jags, the Cardinals, and the Green Bay Packers, because those are teams that I don't think are going to go down as easy. Now, you look at the Eagles and you say, okay, well, do they think they had the game wrapped up in the first half and then they just rely on their defense to be able to close it out? And I think that's what we've been seeing, especially in week 3. But I think things are going to change in week 4 because I think the Jaguars are a team that can definitely have a big second half. And it's the NFL. I mean, you can't overlook any team. You looked at the Dolphins and Ravens a few weeks ago. The Dolphins looked completely out of that game. And then all of a sudden, we're able to have a huge second half and come back and win it. So if you're the Eagles right now, I think that's something you worry about a little bit. And I think that's something you have to work towards week 4, week 5, and week 6, because they have, quote unquote, an easy schedule. But coming up, they have teams that are extremely tough. And I think this is where you're going to see how long can the defense hold them out? How long can the defense really be on the field? And is Jalen Hurts going to get in a situation where he has to come up with big second half points? And can he do it? I think that's going to be put to the test this week. And, I agree with people that I think they need to play a complete game because it's not going to be every single week in the NFL that you're able to win a game in the first half. It's just not.
Yeah, and I do think this game will be close. It opened at 7. I think it's already down to like 6. I think it's going to be closer than that, and we'll see if the Eagles rise to the occasion, and elevate their play to the scoreboard. So let's talk about this Jaguars team, though, because I had no idea they didn't allow a sack over the last 2 weeks. Almost just as impressive is their ability to get to the quarterback. Much like the Eagles, they've got 2 guys on the edge, Trayvon Walker, Josh Allen, and now this rookie Devin Lloyd in the middle, man, in the middle. Glenn Irby just mentioned this is a hell of a linebacker trio. The Eagles' offensive line, though, they're pretty good too. How do you kind of weigh this matchup?
I will say it worries me a little bit for the pure fact that we know the quarterback that Jalen Hurts is. He's going to scramble. He's going to be able to get out of the pocket and run. And a lot of people, and we mentioned this, that sometimes that can lead to injury because he's so forceful out of the pocket. He's going to dive. He's going to put his body on the line. And against a line like this and linebackers like this and the edge rushers, that scares me a little bit because they're going to come in, they're going to be physical, and they're not going to want you to get that first down or any yards. So this game, I'm curious if they go to the air like they did against the Commanders, just for the pure fact. You look at your running backs, are they even going to be able to get any ground? And are you trusting your offensive line to give you enough time to provide that throw to A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, or Quez Watkins? So I'm curious what the Eagles' game plan is going to be, to be honest with you, because I know they have had success in running the ball, but I think they're going to get stuffed this week. And I don't want to see Jalen Hurts run all over the field. That's just a cause for injury, in my opinion, in this week. So I'm expecting them to go in the air. And I think the offensive line, this is probably their biggest game of the year so far because you need to protect the guy under center. You need to protect Jalen Hurts at all costs. And are they going to be able to do it against a very good front and linebackers? We're going to have to wait and see. But I think this is a big test for them this week.
No, I agree with you. I think it is going to be their biggest challenge to date. And good point. This is not a team you want Hurts running around, taking a lot of hits, because these guys are fast, they're strong, and they're physical. And they get after it. And, Allen and both Allen, Allen's, I think, over 250, close to 260. Walker is like 240-ish maybe and is like a lightning out there. And we know Devin Lloyd came in at 6'1" and 225 and laying the lumber out of Utah. So this Jaguars team, and we talked about Andre Sisco, one of my personal favorites, this team is going to come out hitting. So I agree with you. I think you have to go into this game and try to limit the hits that Jalen Hurts does take, and he's got to be conscious of that and be aware that, you know what, maybe you shouldn't be taking off and running as much in this particular ball game. So, all right, let's flip the side inside the trenches, though. Eagles big 9-sack performance. I think it was like the most in 70 years. Every week we have these historical feats, it seems like we're talking about. And then you have the Jaguars offensive line that, as you know, Doug Peterson believes in building in the trenches. He's got his offensive line in Jacksonville playing at a very high level. I mentioned they haven't given up a sack in 2 weeks. Who's going to bend first in this matchup?
I think that they get to Lawrence. I just think that I don't think he's as mobile of a quarterback as Jalen Hurts. I think he can move a little bit, but I think if he gets caught and if there's any open hole and if that offensive line makes any little bit of mistake, the Eagles are going to come rushing. Now, do we see the blitz a lot more from this Eagles team? Do we see more of a John Gannon blitz set up to try to get to Trevor Lawrence going in, knowing what Doug Peterson's game plan is going to be and that he has been protected at all costs? I would like to see them be a little bit more aggressive on the line and be able to get to him a little bit more. Now, it's not going to be the same sack performance they had against Carson Wentz. I think a lot of people saw that coming, just seeing how Wentz is as a quarterback and how he hesitates and tries to scramble and then really can't go anywhere. I think Trevor Lawrence is a little bit more grounded than that, and I think he has the coach to be able to do that. But I do think that John Gannon's game plan is going to be, let's blitz him a little bit more. The pressure needs to be on the QB. Let's not step back and just kind of sit in our heels. Let's go after him and see what we can do and put as much pressure on him as we can. And like I said, if the offensive line slips up even a little bit for this Jags team, I think Lawrence goes down.
Yeah, it's going to be a different Trevor Lawrence than what we've seen, I think, in the past 2 weeks, because when you're under duress and under pressure and have a defensive line rotation, I don't know this for a fact. I haven't done the deep dive research on it, but I find it hard to believe there's another defensive line in the National Football League that can rotate as many quality players as the Eagles are bringing in and out. And we talked about Cox and Brandon Graham playing an all-time low snap count, but playing at an all-time high level. And then you got guys like, Josh Sweat, who we barely even talk about on this show. He's just he was in there on a sack and a big play last week, and he kind of just goes about his business. He was a Pro Bowl player. You got so many different guys that can step up on that defensive front, and a lot of unsung heroes like Milton Williams, Marlon T, even Jordan Davis. It's not a lot of reps, but he makes them count. And again, we talk about it each week. By the end of the season, Jordan Davis is going to play a key role in this defense. A lot of praise for Nakobe Dean in the press conference yesterday. He has yet to see the field because of how good the linebackers are playing. But this defensive line rotation, I mean, it's got to be one of the elite, if not the best in the league.
And I think the Eagles are smart because they have seen year after year their big-time defensive line, whether it's Fletcher Cox or Brandon Graham, get hurt and be out. And now you have guys that can filter in, and it really doesn't miss a beat. And you also look at guys like Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham who are older in their careers. So you're giving them a less snap count. That means they can be more effective. And you're having guys behind them that can really step up and do the exact same thing. And that's what's so exciting. And I think that's what this Eagles team is going to be so successful this year, because they're so deep in so many different areas. Injuries are going to happen. That's the name of the game. And we've been saying that it's a physical, tough game. But when you look at this defensive line right now and you look at the rotations of everything like this, how do you even game plan for all of these guys? How do you go into your film room as an offensive line and say, well, I need to watch out for this, and the other, because you don't know who you're going to see when the week comes. It might be Fletcher Cox playing majority of the snaps. Maybe they'll switch it, order the rotation. So I think for an opposing team, it's hard to even game plan against too.
Yeah, they're preserving these guys in a really efficient way. They're giving them a lot of these older guys are getting a day off midweek as well. And so far, so good. I mean, injuries can really alter the course of a season. But hold our breath, knock on wood, they've been lucky through the first 3 games, relatively unscathed when it comes to the injury. Now, I haven't heard too much about Darius Slay. I know he left in the first quarter. Zach McPherson has come on and kind of held the fort. But he's really the only player in that secondary that hasn't played 100% of the snaps. Otherwise, Epps and Chauncey have all played 100%. Even Bradbury has played 100%, but Slay has only been about 80%. So how do you factor that into this equation? Are you thinking that maybe there's an injury there that's more than they're letting on? Or are they, Slay is 31 going on 32? Are they just maybe preserving him a little bit here?
I think it might be a little bit of both. I think something definitely is nagging him because we even saw it against the Vikings as well when he came out trying to get that second interception and came up hobbling a little bit and then came back and got the INT. I also, I think it's the preserving him as well, though. I think if Slay comes to you and says, hey, whether it's a cramp, whether it's a hamstring, whatever it may be, we don't really know. But in the same sense, his age, that he is one of the most effective guys in your secondary and on that defensive side of the ball. You need to make sure he's not only good now, but you need to make sure that he's good towards the end of the season when you're making that playoff push, because he's the guy that can turn everything around. He's the guy if your offense can't get going in the second half, because honestly right now the Eagles offense hasn't shown a lot of second half production because they haven't had to. He's the guy that can make the big plays to make sure that they close the game out. So I think it's about making sure that he's fully healthy and also making sure if he says any little thing is bothering him, if he even tweaks an ankle, being like, all right, we're going to make sure we monitor this as best as we can, because it's not about having Darius Slay for week 4, 5, and 6. It's about having him at the end of the year and in the postseason too.
No doubt. And, I think they can afford to do that because I gotta admit, I think Avante Maddox is becoming like my favorite player on this Eagles defense. He's just the X factor, man. And Gannon at his presser, he said his ability to win one-on-one and also be an occasional blitzer. And oh, by the way, almost like a coach on the field, the way he communicates pre-snap and letting his teammates know that, hey, if I'm on coverage, but I might have to switch it up based on alignment and get after the quarterback and shoot on the blitz. Avante Maddox has developed into a savvy veteran, but again, another guy like Josh Sweat, he just flies under the radar. But to me, this guy is really he is, I don't want to say the heart and soul of the defense, but man, he is the definition of this Eagle dog mentality, no?
Yeah, and I think he's a leader on that side of things as well. I mean, you look at Darius Slay talent-wise, I think, okay, well, you look at that on a sheet of paper and you say he's the quarterback of that secondary. But you look at Avante Maddox, I mean, the way this guy has grown too, from being a Philadelphia Eagle, from seeing him grow over the past 2 years and how much better he's gotten. And now he's the guy that's leading all of these other guys and being able to communicate. And that's the biggest thing, because if you don't communicate on the field, if you just say, I'm going to do my part and don't help out your other guys, it's going to be chaos. And that's what we've seen with the Philadelphia Eagles for the past 2 years. But he has stepped up big time. I love watching him too. I love how he gets hyped over every single play, even if it's the smallest thing, because you need a guy like that. You need a hype man. No matter how big or how small, you need somebody that's going to be positive back there, and that's going to lead your team. And that's what he's been able to do. And the growth of him just has been so fun to watch. I'm glad the Eagles have definitely really stayed with him and been able to train him up to be where he is right now.
No doubt. And, one guy we haven't even mentioned yet is Hassan Reddick. We talked about the hometown hero coming back, a little bit streaky out of the gates, has come on a little bit stronger as the season wears on. Now, still another guy only playing 50 to 60% of the snaps. They're paying him a lot of money. He came out and said after this Commanders game, we are nowhere near where we want to be. That's a pretty interesting statement for one of the only two teams still being left undefeated. So Reddick putting the self-pressure on the defense, saying, hey, we got a lot of room to get better and improve. And if you're the other 31 teams and you're hearing that, you're saying, well, heck, we might be in for some trouble here.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to look at it too, because you never want to settle, especially early in the season. But when you look at John Gannon, the way that he's been able to improve since week 1 to week 3, when you look at the rotations, that's probably something new for a lot of these guys. I mean, you talk about veterans like Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham coming in, and their whole entire career is probably playing majority of the snaps, and now it's lessened and lessened and lessened. And for other guys like Reddick and other positions as well, I mean, these guys are probably still getting used to that rotation and figuring out how effective they need to be when they get put in that situation. And that's exciting. I mean, it's crazy to even think about that. And I think this is one of the most complete Eagles teams in years that I can even think of. And I'm even talking about when they won the Super Bowl, because you look at these guys, you look how deep they are right now. And I know I said that earlier, but it's so exciting when you look at it, because once again, you have rotations on rotations. You're keeping guys healthy. You're making sure that they have enough gas to come in later in the game and make those big plays. And I think that's what he's talking about. It's about getting better every single week, about realizing, okay, when can I come in and I only might be playing a little bit of the snaps, but how effective can I be when I'm on the field? And that's something I think that they're going to get better and better off each week too.
She's Philadelphia's finest, Kayla Santiago, dropping bombs on the Football Playbook, the most complete Eagles roster, including the Super Bowl team. You heard her say it. You heard it here first on the Football Playbook. And I know you weren't able to watch the primetime affair because you're doing Big Willie things down there in the D.C. area at Delmarva Sports. This game, back to Sunday. Hopefully you'll be able to soak it in. I know you won't be able to attend the game, or maybe you are, but there's a question, will Dougie P receive the standing ovation that he deserves if the one Kayla Santiago was in attendance at the game? Are you standing and clapping for Doug? Are you booing for Doug? Are you kind of waiting to see what the rest of the crowd, what kind of reception do you think Doug Peterson deserves on Sunday?
If it was me, I'm standing, I'm clapping, I'm holding up signs, I'm having a fake Lombardi trophy in the stands. I mean, come on. This guy helped deliver the one Super Bowl to the city. And it wasn't even his fault that the Eagles let him go. A lot of people, weren't happy about his play calling. I think it was the right decision at the end of the day. I think both sides needed to depart from each other. I think the Eagles needed to move on. I think Doug Peterson needed to move on and be on a new team. But it's not like he did anything awful to Philadelphia. It's not like he said, I want to leave this city. I don't like this city. I don't want to be a part of it. He has said nothing but good things about Philly. And I think you're crazy if you're in the stands and you're booing him at all. I mean, are you kidding me? This coach made memories for a lifetime. You're never going to be able to experience a first Super Bowl win ever again as a Philadelphia fan, sitting with your grandparents, your aunts and uncles, your parents, your siblings, your cousins. I love Doug Peterson. I'm not going to love going up against him, but I think that he definitely deserves a standing ovation. But I'm curious to see, because, listen, fans are super unpredictable, and they could be like, we're playing this team. It's competition. It's football. I don't want him on the field. But I genuinely hope he does get a standing ovation on Sunday.
Yeah, you never know with the Philly fan base, but I think he's going to get a standing O. And I'm with GG Meta in the chat room, man. I'm going to be standing in my living room giving a standing O.
For sure.
And, to answer his previous question, because I know he was late to the show, thank you for tuning in. Yes, Brandon Graham was named your NFC Defensive Player of the Week. Kayla Santiago is our guest of the week here. We got to get a score prediction from you before we let you go. Kayla, drum roll, please. I told you the Eagles came in, opened up as a touchdown favorite. The line is already starting to trickle down. I haven't seen what it was at last check, but give us a prediction and score if you can.
I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a gritty game. I think both lines on the offensive and defensive side of the ball for both teams are going to go at each other. I think the game plan from both coaches is going to be fantastic. I'm going to take the Eagles 24-21 over the Jags. I think it's going to be really close. I think it could be a last-second field goal as well. And I think that the Eagles will win. I think they're at home. I think they have the edge. But don't overlook Doug Peterson. He knows exactly what it's like to coach in Philadelphia. He's going to come in with a game plan. And I think it's going to be some great Sunday football to watch.
No doubt. And I agree with you. I think it's going to be a close game. I sat here and said that last week. It wasn't. I hope I'm wrong again. I hope we're both wrong. I hope it's an Eagles blowout. Right? So we'll come back and talk about it next week. And I know you got a lot going on down there at Delmarva Sports. Tell the listening audience at home where they can follow you and some of the things you have on the horizon.
Yeah, so Twitter, Kayla_Santiago1, tweeting all Eagles, Sixers, and what we've been doing as well. We have a lot of fun stuff coming up. We have an MMA fight coming up in October 22nd. A lot of UFC fighters that want to go to the Contender Series will be there, so we're super excited about that. And we're in the gritty season of high school football and college football right now. Salisbury University is right there as well, University of Delaware. And then we look at all of our high schools. I mean, Friday Night Lights have just been so fun to cover down here. It's getting a little bit colder too, but everybody loves football. It's football weather. So it's been a lot of fun. And we post all of our games and our shows and everything like that on my Twitter as well. So be sure to stay tuned for that.
No, absolutely. Love the high school football. It's pretty big down there.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if you were aware that we had Austin Lane on the other day. He's a former Jaguars player, and he just got signed to the Dana White UFC Contender Series. So keep a lookout for that young man.
Wow, yeah, that's awesome. One of the guys that we covered last year in the same MMA event just got signed too. So that's fantastic. I love UFC, so I definitely will be watching. I watched all of the Contender Series fight nights and things like that.
I can't say – yeah, sorry to cut you off. I can't say I know a lot about it, but I am intrigued when guys like Adrian Peterson fought Le'Veon Bell a couple weeks ago. I found that interesting. And I didn't realize Austin Lane, one of his first pro fights was against Greg Hardy, who you know from the Dallas Cowboys and amongst others. So just figured, I knew you were doing a lot of MMA and UFC. Just keep an eye open for Austin Lane, 12-3 as a pro. So a little tidbit there. Hopefully I can educate you as much as you're educating our listening audience. We'll come back and do it again next week, shall we, Kayla?
Yeah, I can't wait. Hopefully we're smiling as much as we are today, and it's another Eagles W. I hope so.
Absolutely. Go Birds.